Hi, we're Group 13, and our policy that we will be presenting today is called Tobacco21.
So what's the problem? In 2020, 85% of high school students and 74% of middle school students admitted to using tobacco products in the past 30 days, in which were a flavored tobacco product. Since 2014, the commonly used tobacco product among youth was e-cigarettes. However, adolescents are using other tobacco products such as cigarettes, cigars, smokeless tobacco, hookah, and heated tobacco products. On the right-hand side of this slide, you can see a data display of the commonly and current tobacco products being used among high school students. Many adolescents are using the tobacco products for mental issues such as depression, anxiety, stress, and other mental issues related things. Media content displays the use of tobacco products as a normal activity. As for consequences, adolescents who use multiple tobacco products are at higher risk for developing nicotine dependence. This dependence could develop into adulthood, creating an even higher risk for chronic disease. Media content is also normalizing the use of tobacco products, which is enticing adolescents to try tobacco products. Exposure to tobacco products can affect the brain development of adolescents. Smoking-related illness in the U.S. costs over $300 billion each year, more than $255 billion for direct medical care for adults, more than $156 billion in lost productivity, and about $5.6 billion in lost productivity due to secondhand smoke. To reduce the rate of adolescent tobacco use, federal law Tobacco21 went into effect on December 20th, 2019, where 39 states in the United States agreed to change the minimum tobacco sales age from 18 to 21. With Tobacco21, the purchase of every tobacco product such as e-cigarettes, vapes, cigarettes, cigars, smokeless tobacco, hookah, and heated tobacco cannot be sold to those who are underage. With this policy, retailers are required to verify the age of those purchasing, must post signs stating that tobacco sales to persons under the age of 21 is prohibited, dedicate funding to fully cover enforcement costs, and inspect tobacco retailers for compliance with the age restriction. Before federal law Tobacco21, other policies such as Tobacco Regulation Act of 2003 and Family Smoking Prevention and Tobacco Control Act of 2009 were enacted to regulate the distribution, manufacturing, and marketing of tobacco products. As for public opinion, those who are in support of Tobacco21 include health officials, parents, and the overall public. However, those who oppose the current Tobacco21 law include the tobacco industry and retailers. From this age change, the tobacco industry and retailers are currently suffering from a decrease in demand and loss of revenue of tobacco products. And of course, individuals under the age of 21 oppose the current law because they won't be able to access the tobacco products anymore.
For the logic model, for inputs, we have that we'll need to find funding for the training of state inspectors, and then we'll also need to create a team to help establish a civil penalty structure for tobacco violations. For activities, we'll require tobacco retailers and employees to verify the age of purchasers, and we'll also require tobacco retailers to post signs regarding the new age limit. For outputs, tobacco retailers will now prohibit anyone underage from purchasing tobacco products, and also state inspectors can properly distinguish if retailers are complying with state protocols. For outcome, for the short term, we have negative feelings towards tobacco products, as tobacco will be harder to access, and the youth will also begin to see the negative connotations and effects that are directly linked with tobacco usage. And then for the intermediate, we'll have a decrease in underage and youth population using and purchasing tobaccos. For impact, we'll see a decrease in the older smoking population, as smoking tends to be a habit that starts from a young age. And we'll also see a decrease in mortality and morbidity in smoking-related diseases. So the three evaluation questions we have: short-term, intermediate, and long-term. For the short-term, did Tobacco21 change the youth's perception on tobacco products? For intermediate, did Tobacco21 lead to a decrease in usage of tobacco in the youth population? And then for the long term, did the introduction of Tobacco21 have a positive effect on health outcomes and tobacco-related diseases?
The evaluation design that we'll be looking at is a long-term series of design. This would be a quasi-experimental time series design. Since we're mainly concerned with a particular group and how tobacco is made easily accessible to them, a quasi-experimental time series design is good at looking at specific places of interest, which would be drug or convenience stores nearby high schools over a long period of time, which would be for the 3-year time that we're looking for. Some specific data indicators that we'll be looking for is purchase history of drug or convenience stores and questionnaire responses from teenagers. The data sources we'll be concerned with are high schools, drug convenience stores, and smoke specialty shops, particularly drug convenience stores and smoke specialty shops that are nearby high schools. The time frame will consist of 2 particular times of interest, which is before the policy is in place and after the policy is in place. For the policy, we can look at a retroactive purchase history of tobacco-related products within drug and convenience stores and smoke specialty shops before the policy was in place and how frequent high schoolers were purchasing those items. After the policy, we can study for 3 years on the difference in terms of tobacco-related purchases within those stores and shops nearby those high schools. Our economic evaluation would mainly focus on the business perspective. This is because we know through our policy, it'd mainly be tobacco companies and drugstores, which would be taking the largest hit and or costs with our policy in place. Tobacco companies would start losing revenue on sales, drug and convenience stores would have a lower frequency of customers and lower tobacco sales. And the cost of monitoring tobacco purchases made over the 3-year period of our study would have its own costs as well. Some expected health outcomes would include a decrease in related diseases with tobacco, and this would include for adults, a decrease in cancers and heart diseases, etc. And for the youth, we'd be looking at improved brain health development. We would also look for an outcome of healthier alternatives to deal with mental health stressors. This is because many teenagers rely on tobacco to sort of deal with day-to-day mental health stress. And we're hoping through the implementation of our policy, we can give them a better alternative that wouldn't have them rely on tobacco.
Data collection. Considering the time frame being long-term of 3 years, the data needed to answer the evaluation questions are questionnaires and surveys that high school students can participate in before and after the study to evaluate the effectiveness of the policy. From the questionnaires, we are going to be able to pull qualitative data, which will contain experiences, opinions, and outcomes. For data collection, we can take a retrospective look at the purchases made at convenience stores before the policy and therefore analyze purchase records from stores with and without the Tobacco21 policy. Also, yearly national health records are collected to analyze the trends and the prevalence of the tobacco use in high school students. Evaluation challenges. Some possible areas to consider when evaluating the policy are the inaccuracy of the results due to recall bias and lack of participation in the questionnaires and surveys from high school students. Also, the time frame of the study may not be long enough to obtain the optimal results that we would want. The time frame makes it difficult to accurately measure the effectiveness of the policy due to 3 years not being enough time to get results or any type of outcome. Lastly, a challenge to consider is a lack of access to appropriate data, considering there are individuals applying high school students. For example, some confounding variables to our data is that there are some places that do not card or follow any type of regulations for the benefit of their profit. It is also important to consider that the data being collected will not account for those individuals who are friends with peers who can purchase tobacco products, which all affects our data.
So with the proper implementation of Tobacco21, we'll see an impact on health equity within our population. We will see a decrease in the initiation of smoking habits in the youth population. There will be a decrease to secondhand smoke exposure, and we'll also see an overall improvement in health of the population, which is through the decrease in morbidity and mortality of smoking-related diseases such as cancer, lung disease, heart disease, and COPD. And we'll also see an increase in brain development and cognitive functions in the youth. Although Tobacco21 has reduced the usage of tobacco products in the youth, our group feels that the policy does not directly target the root causes of why adolescents may turn to using tobacco products. So, the question our group wants to pose is what type of interventions can be established at the local, state, or federal level to reduce or eliminate tobacco usage in those who are underage? These are our references, and thank you guys for tuning into our presentation, and we hope that you found it enjoyable and you learned something new today.